BYOB. Bring your own books, bring your own booze, boys, besties, whatever. Weirdly enough, today we are both without our besties, our other halves. This is kind of one of those weird shows. Here's what happened to Laura. So I'll tell you what happened to Laura. Laura is up at her property in Michigan, and she and her husband were putting sweet beets, like sugar beets, out for the deer. And he said, "Oh, they're really good. You should eat one." But they're supposed to be for the deer. So she eats one and then she eats another one because they're sweet beets and they're good. And she had a reaction to an allergic reaction to the sugar beets. So she can't join us right now. She's all like swollen up. So we're minus Laura today. So we're thinking about her and her sweet beets and her life choices about trusting her husband when he says, "No, it's good, eat that." So I'm not going to do that again. So that's what happened. We are also only with half of the ladies, the And I Thought ladies. So we're winging it today, girl.
Ooh, it works out great because apparently I put on the wrong bow, so I now have wings on my head now. So
there we go. We are winging it, bows and all.
Flap.
There we go. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell the folks who you are and what you are half of.
Hi, I'm Nola Marie, and I'm half of the And I Thought ladies. We write books. Go figure. Bring your own book podcast and a book. I know, I'm surprising. I'm probably your first guest that did that, right?
Exactly.
And we do a ton of other things. And for the first time ever, although I'm missing my other half, which is normally a JD that would be sitting right here, okay? Although I'm missing a JD, I am not going to go down the list. And JD is always the one that goes, "Don't go down the list. It sounds like you're bragging." And then today I'm like, it feels like a lot of work to go down the list of everything I do. Hold on while I bring my own booze.
There you go. Look at you go.
In a coffee cup so that no one really has to know. I should have announced it, right?
Well, Nona understood the assignment.
I mean, I'm getting Hemingway. That's how I always keep it literary. Because I do write literary stuff.
Yes.
And you love that face that I did with literary stuff.
So you and I and Jade, we've had the opportunity to hang out in person several times because of some of the things that you guys do. You're poets, and I love that. You have a magazine. I love that. You have an awards banquet that you do, and I've been lucky enough to attend that both as media and as an awardee. And they are such fun and special events. And one of the things that I love about you two is the playfulness that you have when you approach everything that you do. So you make it so fun for everybody that's involved, and you have such a great outreach program as well. So you may not brag on yourself, but I'm going to brag for you because that's what we do.
Thank you. Can I say this today? I forgot the entire list. I'm not going to lie. And then as you were talking, I was like, oh crap, there's more to that. Yes.
There's so much that you guys do.
I have got to stop talking and drinking. I'm so sorry, y'all.
I think that's totally the way to go, honestly. In this podcast, we talk and drink. That's what we do. That's what we do. Mostly it's me. Only today, my drink is downstairs. So we're having this hotness day. I know. I left it downstairs, and it's like I could carry things around, but then I'm afraid I'll lose my
mean. So I'm going to let that go because I thought it would be a funny joke, and then I was like, no, it sounds meaner. So I was about to is it a sweet beet drink?
It was a sweet beet drink is what it is. And I just left it downstairs. I listened to Laura's bad advice. No. Laura's husband's bad advice. Right. Drinking sweet beets today.
When you were talking, I was like, well, I guess he's not the survivalist. Nice to know now. Okay.
Or maybe he is the survivalist and he wanted to see if Laura was any good at it too. It's so funny. They have such a cute relationship. I absolutely adore the relationship that she has with her husband. They are also just precious people. And I have
an adorable relationship with my ex-husband. It's called Never See You Again.
I've had that similar relationship with my ex-husband.
I feel like it's a great, adorable one because I'm adorable and I feel great about myself. So there we go.
I think that's the way to be, honestly. I think that's the way to, and you are adorable. You are adorable. That's another thing I love about these ladies, y'all, is they have a sense of style like no one else. I mean, it is so fun. It's kind of, you've got like this retro vibe, but in a really modern way. And it's just so much fun to see what you guys pull together. And you always have the best dresses. You always have the best shoes. We're going to talk about shoes later. So hang on to your shoes because it's one of the things I love about them is every time they show up looking fabulous. It's part of who you are, and it is so.
If you ask our talent manager and I'm sorry, not talent manager, literary manager in LA, she's like, only you two can get away with red carpets and flats.
I mean,
and so she like the first time we did it, she was like, honestly, flats. And then the second time and the third, and by the sixth time, she was like, okay, so you're just going to try to get away with flats. I was like,
well, here's the way I feel about that.
Shoes.
I would fall off of them if I had to wear heels. Like I can't wear like a heel. I have one pair of heels and it takes so much concentration and effort to not fall off of them that I would be rocking some flats too. If I could get away with it, I absolutely would. But no, I know you've got some great shoes. And I know Jade's got some great shoes because she left a pair of them by the door one time when we were doing the it was a cocktail thing we did when we were in Maryland, or one of the things that we did. And she had these great shoes by the door. And I was like, I love these shoes. And she's like, but I'm not wearing them. They were heels.
Okay, so group secret that I'm now just telling live, Jade is a professional stylist.
That's right. She is. She told me
that.
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of cool because you always have a stylist with you. Mm-hmm. She gets dressed for an event. Dang it, does she get dressed? And she has this weird quirk. I mean, in true stylist fashion, she has this weird, quirky kind of like vibe to her clothes, which is so funny because when Jade gets dressed for a ladies' event, she has to change her style. Her personal style is completely different than her ladies' style.
So how is it different?
She likes goth.
I would not have put that with JD. I'm so sorry. I mean, I can kind of see it. But I guess I've never seen her in her full goth gear.
Yeah, no, not many people do. And so it's hilarious because do y'all want to hear the story how we got our brand style?
Oh, absolutely we do.
I should be talking about something else completely, but this is the story of our brand style.
It's who you are. That's why you're here.
So when we started, I turned to Jade and I was like, oh, I want to do this, and this. And then we were getting featured for our first magazine. And we were like, oh, well, I feel like this is going to set the tone for the vibe for our fashion. And she turned to me and she was like, look, you want to keep going until you're like famous. And so it's going to take you like at minimum like 8 years, 9 years to get famous. If you work so hard, you'll never believe how hard you work. And then it's going to take you, 5 or 6 years on the top if you're very fortunate, and then another 3 years to fall off. And we're looking at a total of maybe 13 years at minimum if you can get everything done. So she was like, okay, look at what you look like now. And then think about how large you're probably going to be in 13 years. Ask yourself, do I want to eat or do I not want to eat? And my answer was eat.
Mm-hmm.
So she went, well, sweetie, we're 1950 vintage because no matter how big it gets, the skirts can get a little bigger, so you look a little smaller.
I think that's excellent advice. That's excellent advice, and I think I'm going to start suddenly embracing 1950s vintage because things are getting a little wider.
Right? And it's been great because everyone was like, you look exactly the same. And I'm like, oh, how much bigger this skirt has gotten.
But we eat. And we like to eat, and we absolutely want to.
I found out that writing was like, out of all the sections of the entertainment, I chose the right one because everyone else can't eat, but we eat, and we eat.
I love it. I love it. I mean, right? I mean, I'm from South Louisiana. We're all about the food. I mean, come on. I'm gonna eat. Eat.
That's Louisiana food. Oh, I'm sorry. This is your show. Never mind.
Why? No, it's not my show. It's your show today. You're the guest. You're on the show. You get to talk about Louisiana food, like, all the jambalaya and gumbo and fried catfish and things in a sauce. We don't do food without sauce. I mean, it's got to be full of butter, and it's got to be full of spices and salt or loaded in sugar, deep fried. I mean, come on. It's all about adding flavor to flavor to flavor.
Oh,
That's my
that's a
favorite thing.
word. I love.
It's good.
I was about to say something, and then I was like, no, because like it's live. It's not going to get edited out, so no.
No. No, we're live. All of the chaos goes out today. It's just
I love this.
everywhere.
But I absolutely love like the flavor on flavor. But I mean, I'm African American. We love flavor.
You know?
So I'm told.
Well, and I think a lot of our culture, I mean, we have a lot of in South Louisiana, it comes from France. So we have like the real like high cuisine. But we have such a huge African and Caribbean influence to our food down there. And so we have the spices, we have the heat, we have all of these things, the slow cooking way of doing things that really brings out the flavor in things that actually comes from a lot of African cuisine and the spices that were brought over. I mean, the reason we have okra and we put okra in everything, we fry it. I mean, the deep south, we fry okra, we put it in gumbo, we do all this stuff. Okra came from Africa. Like this is stuff they brought over with them. And I mean, we don't like how they got there. We don't like the reason they were here to bring it, but we do like the fact that we have embraced that part of it. We have this contribution to the cuisine that we all love so much. But that's a lot of where that comes from, is that blending of cultures, especially down in New Orleans, where it was such a melting pot from all over the world. And it has developed its own cuisine, and it is so many layers of flavor. And any New Orleans chef or anybody will tell you that's what it's all about, building the layers of flavor. It should not ever just be one thing. It's the more you eat it, the more you discover. And you never really want to ask anybody in Louisiana what's in it. Probably don't want to know.
And by the time they give
Don't
you the
ask.
list, it's like it's a grocery store anyway. So why bother? Just let them cook it.
Just let them cook it. Let them cook it and eat it. I mean, that's really my mantra. I do a few things, but mostly I let my sister-in-law cook it. It's like, you make it so much better than I do.
So
As soon
like
as I get out of the work.
my question all the time is I always have a problem between New Orleans and Chicago. I can't decide who has the best food. Although I have to admit, I've never been to New Orleans. I've
Oh,
only had
girl.
people from New Orleans cook. Oh my God, that food is amazing.
Here's the
And then
thing.
like I haven't been to Chicago. That is my spring trip. I used to work out for 4 months just to go to Chicago to eat for 8 hours a day for 3 entire days.
Well, you're going to need to start your diet now if you plan to go to New Orleans the next year or so. Start working out now because we're going to pile it on. There's so much to eat and drink in New Orleans. See, I think you and Jade in New Orleans, the city may never be the same. It would be so fun.
It would. And I mean, I
It'd be
feel
so
like
fun.
we will have a new drinking adventure. So
Oh, yes. Yes.
yeah, like I'm hearing everyone's like y'all like to drink, so definitely you need to stop by New Orleans, which is funny because normally it's like y'all like to drink and everyone talks about like drinks and I'm like, yeah, I actually did like champagne in Champagne, France, and Burgundy in Burgundy, France, and Scotch in Scotland, and Irish whiskey in Ireland. And because when I'm going on book tour in Europe, I might as well stop by and have a drink.
You might as well.
Or a few, or a couple of bottles.
So, of course, a couple of bottles. So, our first stop when we go down to New Orleans, all of us, because we're going to have to take Laura with us and we're going to corrupt her as well, because this is what I do when I take people to New Orleans. We're going to have to, of course, go get the famous hurricane. I mean, you must have a hurricane. I mean, here in Tennessee, we have our Tennessee whiskey, and Tennessee whiskey it's a great thing too.
Oh, I've had the whiskey in Tennessee.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And yes, Lisa says you can pick up hurricanes at Pat O'Brien's and walk down the street at 9 a.m. Yes, you can. But I will tell you, and it may be a sacrilegious thing to say, you can pick up a hurricane at Pat O'Brien's, and I suggest that you go to Pat O'Brien's. But Pat O'Brien's, actually, it may be the original hurricane, but it's a mix now. And it is more like hurricane flavored Kool-Aid. I mean, with a lot of rum in it. It's as strong as it can be. But there are bars down there that mix it from scratch. That's the hurricane you want. that's the one you want. So there are a few of them that are really good, and their bartenders will actually throw it together instead of Pat O'Brien's got the big vat of it, which is great. And you can get it frozen at Pat O'Brien's, and when it's really hot, you walk around Bourbon Street with a frozen hurricane. But you go on bar hopping so much that you do have to start at 9 a.m. Lisa's right. I mean, she's not saying you can. It's more of a you should get in at 9 o'clock in
If
the
you want to
morning.
get everything in with the food, you should start at 9 a.m. yesterday.
Well, I always say you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
Exactly.
That's the way it works. Start with mimosas and a Bloody Mary.
So I think I'm going to stop by my training ground first, and then we're going to go down to New Orleans. So like Vegas is one of our bigger stops for being an author, just because we get invited to do stuff in Vegas. And so we would go there quite a bit. So I'm going to stop by and get a little bit of training, and then I think I'll be ready to catch up with you, Nola, because I remember you at the cocktail party. It's very hard to catch up with you.
It's hard to catch up with me. It is hard to catch up with me.
Unless
you gotta hang on tight. We're off to the races very early on. You give me my rum and Coke, and we just gone. We gone. Now, I mean, I grew up drinking the daiquiris down there, and one of my favorite daiquiris, because it tastes like grape Kool-Aid or like grape Dimetap, is the Voodoo daiquiri at not Pat O'Brien's, we're just talking about Pat O'Brien's, at Jean Lafitte's blacksmith shop. Mm-hmm. And it is so purple, but it's made, and several of the daiquiris in Louisiana, down in New Orleans, you got to look at them and see what's in them. There are tequila ones, rum ones, vodka ones. There are also Everclear. And when you put Everclear in a daiquiri, you can't taste the Everclear anymore.
I used to get my daiquiri in Vegas. Okay, back in the day in Vegas, they used to have the 99-cent cup daiquiris. And yes, this is telling my age. And they would have a daiquiri with rum with 151 and Everclear in it. And those were my daiquiris.
Yes.
I would get like a double. I would get like a two split in half. And then I would always pour a little shot of vodka on the top just to make it palatable.
You're fine. We're going to be just fine, Nona. We can do this.
It's the first time I had ever felt tipsy in my life. I drank like 3 of them in a row, and I went, "Oh my God, I think I feel tipsy."
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Take a nap.
We're going to be fine. Oh, look, Lisa has been she's had the Voodoo daiquiri at Jean Lafitte's and sat in the spooky part of the bar where it still didn't have electricity. It still does not. No, you're exactly right. There are some, a couple of like neon lights that are kind of hung out like bar lights. But no, the bar is the blacksmith shop. And so you are sitting in basically the dark. They have one little tiny bathroom. It is the oldest bar in America. And they have made sure to keep it that way, that it still looks the same. So yes, you can walk into Jean Lafitte's blacksmith shop. It was his blacksmith shop and then became a bar. And then you can sit in the dark and guzzle down your Voodoo daiquiri and then stagger yourself back down Bourbon Street to the rest of the bars. But you got to stop along, pick up a po' boy, let some of the bread and fried food soak up.
You need a little oil.
Absolutely.
Definitely some carbohydrates, which actually is not supposed to work. You know something? I'm not going into that. That's my biology classes for the semester.
And that should be sugar. It should turn it into sugar and make it worse, but you think you need the bread, but it's really the grease that you need. But oh yes, well, we're gonna have us a good time in New Orleans when we go. But you mentioned Vegas, and you mentioned some events that you do there. What types of things? And for the people, I know what types of things you do, but we're gonna kind of pretend I don't here for a second. And you guys, you get invited to some really cool things. So you get invited out to Vegas, you get invited out to LA and Hollywood stuff. What are some of the things that kind of stand out to you as events that have been the most impactful for you or just the most fun?
Vegas is always fun because when I wake up at 9 a.m., it's 6 a.m. back home. So it's great because I'm like, no, I lied that. When I wake up at 9 a.m. in Vegas, it's 12 p.m. back home. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. So now you slept in.
Yeah. So I feel like I slept in. And then I don't feel bad about like walking down and grabbing like a hurricane or one of those like, mixed drinks and then going to breakfast. I'm like, oh my God, I feel, pretty decent. But writing wise, we got invited to read out there. We got invited to teach at the Las Vegas Writers Conference. We do the Las Vegas Writers Retreat out there, where we actually hold a small conference. It's only for about 14 to 20 people, and we invite like publishing houses, we invite best-selling authors, TV producers, direct Hollywood movie directors to come out and teach you one-on-one from the first day. And on the second day, you apply everything you've done. Like, you actually get an interview done on the spot there. You pitch your book to some publishers. You pitch your book to a movie producer, an actor, and financier, like these sorts of things. Like, you go into a room and pitch, and these things you learn. And then
I love that.
and then overnight, we also work on first you learn how to write. You also do writing exercises that day and learn from other authors how to write your book. And then overnight, you get to write with the 40-day author, the person who can teach you how to write a book in 40 days.
Oh, that's cool.
Hundreds of people. And so, like, once class is over, we have it at the Embassy Suites. So because there's a free happy hour from 6:30 to 7:30, and our class never goes till 5:30.
Awesome. Oh, because
5:20.
We have priorities.
We need to get Hemingway. And then at 8:00 until whenever you're ready, you sit down with the 40-day writer, and then you like write through your book and stuff, and then you can read it and pitch it, or learn how to do all that stuff the next day. So, like, I feel like it's a
very
great
hands-on. I like that.
It's a great way to learn and then practice. And so that way you leave with a bunch of skills. I call it a writer's retreat. Every time I throw it, everyone's like, it's a boot camp.
It is. I guess it is, because I feel like a writer's retreat sometimes is just simply needing the space away from other distractions to have the time to write. But this is really getting you kind of into the trenches of getting the work done with accountability. And you get the lessons as well as the time to do it. I think it sounds like it's a bit more intense than kind of that, I'm going to sit in a cabin in the woods and I'm going to write. This is, no, we have things to do. We're going to actually get this work done. I love that. Sometimes that's what we need. We need that kick in the pants.
If I sit in a cabin in the woods, I'm just going to try to get a hotspot on my phone so that I can watch TV all day.
I'm going to be on the front porch with a bottle of wine. You'll never see me again.
Exactly. I'm not doing that. I'm going to be bothering other writers, chatting with them. But only if I'm there and I learn something, and then it's like, yo, tomorrow I got homework. I got to show up to class with work.
I got to show up. Yeah. No, I love that.
So to me, it's a writer's retreat.
I'm supposed to be retreating, not actually working. I love it. Lisa asked a question. She wanted to know what kind of poetry you write. And our events, do you do events for poets?
No, I do not do events for poets.
Poets are moody. They're just too moody. No.
I honestly, I don't do events for poets because I don't know how to teach or explain how to write poetry. It's just something I kind of do.
Fair.
Yeah,
absolutely
I know that I should break it down and analyze it and really figure it out how to do it. I've done like one poetry class on improving your writing or getting your poem actually done. I did that, but that I literally winged it. Everyone said they had a really good time, and
well, that's good.
But I mean, I literally was on the set of a movie.
Oh wow!
I also had to teach a class, so I did it in between takes.
I love it. And that is what we love about the ladies. This is how they do things. We're going to do 12 things. We're going to do it all at once.
Exactly.
So how would you describe your poetry then? I mean, I've read some of it, and it is awesome. I mean, you do it. It's very powerful. And yet to me, it's a lot of kind of that free verse. It's got such a funky vibe to it. But it is very soul searching. I really, how would you describe it? That's me as a reader. How do you describe it?
I don't describe my poetry. I really don't. But I love how you did that. So I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
Plus.
That's what I did. What I said.
How I would describe our poetry is we talk a lot about getting through life. Mm-hmm. So our first couple of books, we wrote with some people. And so we talked about our journeys in life. So we had people who were 23 at the time to 70 something, and we've written books together, and it talked about like just things that women face in general. And then my favorite one is, and I thought being grown up was easy. And that talked about going from high school to like finding your first real love, like the person you probably think you're going to walk down the aisle with.
Mm.
And just about like learning how to get through it. Like the American Pie or the American Foe, like just, eating ramen noodles in college. We wrote a poem about that.
I love it. Yep.
One of my favorite
We've all
ones
done
is
it. We've been there. We can relate, right? I mean, that's what I love about it.
25 things that you wish you knew before you're 25. So we literally went around and asked people at different ages what they wish they had known. Like if they could tell themselves anything, just one piece of advice, what would it be? And then we just wrote a poem about how we interpreted those 25 things that you should know before you hit that quarter of a century mark. And that happened because we were on a television interview in LA, and this guy was talking about how at like 20, 21, 22, you just don't really understand the world. And then at 25, people start to die.
Yeah.
And then things are missing from your life that you wish if you only knew. And then you recognize a lot of times you've stumbled and you made a few mistakes and you had to pick yourself up by then and figure something out. And maybe something's gone wrong in your career, but you know what life is, and you wish someone would have told you that that was heading up as a speed bump, not necessarily something that's going to really slow you down, but like
Right.
those little speed bumps, not the big ones,
Right.
Yeah.
But, and then there are those moments where you're going, God, I wish I had just seen that coming, or I wish I had known, then I would have done something differently ahead of it.
Exactly.
To kind of change the landscape, to keep that bump from being so jarring when I could have just eased over it if I had only known. I love that. I love that approach to it.
That literally is what we try to do with our poetry, is be like, hey, if you're on this road and the road turns left and you're in this area in your life, there may be a speed bump in like 3.5 miles, or hey, there may be a red light camera at this red light. That's our poetry. It's just to remind you.
Now, speaking of poetry, you've got a book that's coming out. A new book.
Yes, it's already out.
Oh, that's right. It is out.
Yeah, it's And I Thought I Knew You. And no, this is not one about life. This is one that just happened to come across our path. It is a murder mystery done in poetic verse.
I love the idea of this. This is so cool. Keep going. Tell me more, but don't give anything away.
Someone came on and they said to us, they went, you can't do a murder mystery in poetry. And I went, but I think you can. So we did. It took us almost 2 years, which is weird for us because it normally takes us weeks.
You guys are very, very prolific. I mean, you can do this to slow down to do that. Mostly, I think, because your poetry is so from the heart. You don't have to agonize over it as much because it flows right out of you, because it's just what's inside that's coming out. But I love that this took some time, but it was a challenge for you. You're like, no, you say we can't. Oh, yes, we can.
So, like, I normally, at my max, I can comfortably produce 64 poems a week.
Wow.
I
can't write. I can't do poetry, so that's staggering to me.
So it was weird to sit down and be like, okay, I'm writing poetry now. And then be like, wait. The thing that was the hardest about this poetry book was because I write murder mysteries. Not exact. I write mysteries. Noir genre mysteries since I was 12 years old, because poets don't get paid. At least they used to not get paid. I get paid. Anyway, but, when I started writing and I wrote poetry, someone was like, you don't get paid. So I immediately learned the craft of genre writing, because they do get paid. And I have been being paid for this since I was 12.
Good for you.
So I write that. I write noir mysteries with a gangster family. So it was really fun for me to take mystery and then turn it into poetry. Granted, I use poetry within my mysteries as almost like a cliche kind of thing, because it is a noir thing. So it's very cliche. And to increase the drama. And I love that. So taking the two together, the the aspect that I love the most about writing a mystery. And then writing a mystery was awesome. The problem is when you write a poem, you write a poem. It's about the subject matter that you chose and the poem is done. When you're building a story, you leave red herrings, you leave clues, you do foreshadowing. It's very hard to do when you're writing a poem that's moving the story forward. So a lot of times, which would have been like a couple of paragraphs, became a couple of poems. For instance, and yes, y'all, I'm getting technical and boring, and I'll hurry it along. So we'll get back to the fun part.
I'm fascinated in this because I can't do it. I know my limitations. This is interesting.
The fun part was that, like, when you go to set up the poetry, you're like, oh, I want this person to do this in this manner. Well, first you have to introduce the person, then you have to introduce the setting, then you introduce the person in the setting with the mannerisms. And then that mannerism has to later be explained with another poem. So which would have been 3 paragraphs is now 4 poems.
I see. So it's not like Beowulf. Like we're not writing one giant poem that goes through the whole thing. It's the different things that are moving. The moving pieces of the story are separate poems.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So that was interesting because everyone knows about like Beowulf and the Canterbury Tales, and it's one long poem. And that's exactly what I did not want to do because I had already did that. At 17, someone was talking about, oh, you know, the Canterbury Tales is one long poem. It's like a couple of pages long. And for extra credit, just because my English teacher said, oh, I don't think anyone can really do that anymore, I turned in a 102-page poem with rhyming that told a story just because.
I like that about you guys so much because you take on such a variety of things. And I love that it all has a common thread. It's all you guys. It's all that it's very specific to the ladies brand. And yet you do what you want to do. And it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. So I know what we don't have Jay with us. So, Lisa says so mostly free verse. There's a lot of free verse in what you do, but you do some rhyming things too, don't you?
Yes, I definitely do some rhyming. I do not touch haikus ever, but I do have a few
questions.
I've never understood them, which is so silly because I mean I know if I took the time I'd understand and I'd get it and I'd break down the syllables and I'd have it correct. But no.
I think everybody has their thing, and you know, I think you found your groove. You found what you do well, and it flows from you. I think a haiku a day, and at least I'm kind of going with I'm rabbit trailing here just a little bit. A haiku a day for me would be such a challenge. And I know that haikus are so short, but I'm a novelist. I write in, you know, it takes me pages to do things. So to get it down into those little syllables or to actually take my mind off of the big picture, all of the moving parts of a story and zero in on that tiny little focused thing that a haiku would be, or even just any poem. I mean, that's really why I find poetry difficult because it's about a moment. It's a moment. And it's not, you know, it is the minutia that you're really focusing in on and finding the beauty in that minutia. And I can't do it. I wish I could. I'm fascinated by those who can, and I can't do it. I've said it 1,000 times today, but I cannot. But I think it would be interesting to kind of work on that refinement of word choice and meaning in word choice. And that might be an interesting exercise to try. I'm not going to say I would be good at it. I would be absolutely terrible. But it might be interesting to actually kind of see what it would be like to refine something down to that tiny little number of words and syllables. It would be very
problem is because that was my biggest problem is because when you write a novel, you write a novel and your job is not to cut words.
It's tell everything.
It's tell everything, see everything, feel everything. And that's honestly one of the biggest things that I had to learn when I went from poems to novels, because I thought I was going to novels, but in turn I was really going to short stories. So when I first went to novels, it was well, where am I? How does it feel? What does it smell like? What am I touching? How do I feel on the inside? How would this character feel? What would they think? How would they say it? So like that took forever to learn. And then for this time, it was like, where's this character? How did they feel? What are they? Oh wait, I don't need all of that.
Don't need all that.
Yeah. Do you mind if I read a poem?
Please do. I was actually going to ask if you would like to do that. I'm glad you offered.
I'm not reading one of the fun ones though, which is really
read whatever you want.
Really not great, but so from the book, And I Thought I Knew You, this one's called Should I Call? The Narrator Asked. A cat in the tree? Oh, goodness me. Can you say that again? Static on the line to her chagrin. What's your emergency? Breathe calmly. He's drunk and cussing once more. Oh, never mind. He left out the door. There's a man with pants hanging low. That must be a crime. A crime must be, I know. My car was stolen, so did you park it on 5th Street or below? Yes, but that's the difference. But what difference does it make? It was towed. Oh, for goodness sake. 911, I have an emergency. Where may you be? In the suburbs around the way. My friend was murdered. Should I stay? So this poem would have been like what a 911 operator would deal with on a normal day. And then the actual person who is telling the story, the narrator for our story, calling in to the 911 place.
I love that. That's a very powerful piece. That's amazing. Y'all are good. I mean, just to think about actually the moment of that 911 call and in a poem. You're so cool. I love you. You're so cool. We're gonna play a game.
One more.
Yes, do one more.
One that's actually cool.
They're all good.
Okay, I'm trying.
There is no try, only do.
Yoda showed up for this interview?
Yoda showed up.
Seriously wishing it was Grogu, but I'll take Yoda. If it must be. The original, I'll take it.
I mean, we're going OG on this show.
Yellow lines crisscross, the perimeter for Hope's sun. Each one stands in its glow. Some bask. In the excitement, some trying to slink away. But it's just so bad, they must say. Yellow lines crisscross, such a distasteful color. So loud, so bright, yet darkening Hope's door. Ladies shake their heads, yelling, "Go back, little ones!" On the fridges, the teenagers gather. Some of them chucking what knots away, wishing to slink away. But it's just so bad. They must stay. Yellow lines crisscross. Those who fear stay in their homes. Those who gossip are on their phones, but stand in fear, all alone. No one knows they know why yellow lines were crisscrossed. Screams of caution in a good neighborhood. So the caution tape, when it shows up, and what everyone is doing, because this is a good suburban neighborhood. And the poem before that was just about how perfect that little suburban neighborhood is.
And then the yellow lines show up.
Yes, and how the different groups react.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tried my best, y'all.
No, it's good. That is really cool. Again, it's that unexpected idea of what a poem is. We all think love, we think romance, we think, sorrow and grief and things like that. But to have that kind of that everyday life that, wherever you are, this is something you've seen, this is something you've hopefully not been part of in that particular case, this last poem, but we know what that is. We know what that looks like, and yet we don't necessarily think of the poetry that could be around it. And that is what you did. I love it.
It was fun. You make me sound smart. I like you.
There's a reason you keep me around. You know what it is.
Awesome fun. It's definitely awesome fun.
It's not just because I know how to drink. It's because I make you feel smart while I'm doing it.
I really loved you at the first party. By the way, thank you so much for showing up to that one in Atlanta, Georgia. But I loved you at the first party when we showed up with the miniature, because we were like, okay. So Jade and I looked at each other and we were like, a miniature party. And we were like, yeah, we're going to do that because it's cheaper. But then as I got there and I looked over and I went, is it too collegey? And then like I saw you making a cocktail out of them, and I went, yes, okay, it's grown up too.
Yes, it is. I take that miniature. I'll make a drink out of it. Just start pouring them in. Mix that thing up. We're good to go.
It was fun. It was so fun. Atlanta was a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little stressed because like at the last minute it was like, oh yes, this Idris guy is coming, and I went, oh, and he's like in real shows and movies and stuff. I went, oh.
He was the sweetest kid, though. I mean, super talented. His mom was adorable. I mean, what great, great folks they are. And I still follow him on social media, and I'm just so excited to see the things that he's doing. But what a just wonderful young man. I mean, just so cool.
I'm still blown away by what he does. Like, I'm like, and he came out, what for? I mean, it's just us.
Like, why did
do that? It was us.
And he had a good time. And I mean, he and his mom hanging out. I mean, he's a model. He's in movies. He's doing things for, was it Dior? He's doing things for like major names. This talented, talented young man who has a heart of gold. I mean, he's just the nicest person. And you love when good things happen to nice people. And he was so supportive and had such wonderful things to say about it was about his mom when we were speaking in the event. For folks who don't know, the event that you host is all about, people who have uplifted others and who have overcome obstacles to go on and do great and wonderful creative things, or to put others in a spotlight. And it's such a great event anyway. And when Idris showed up and spoke about his mom, having hung out with her the night before and at the cocktail party where I'm mixing tiny little drinks, but having spent that time with them and just talked about, his career, things that he's doing, and just kind of getting to know them. And when he got up and he spoke about what his mother had to sacrifice for them as they were immigrating so that he could have the opportunity that he has, and the fact that as such a young man, he got it. He understood what she had done, and she had done it so selflessly and not even telling him, I'm doing this for you. There was none of that in his speech. There's none of that made him feel like, or that came across that he felt like she made sure he knew what she had sacrificed for him. He simply watched her and watched her doing what she had to do for her family. And now he has an opportunity that is so incredible. And it's because of her. And I love that you give people an opportunity to showcase that and to showcase what other people have done for other people, especially women and women of color, particularly, having that opportunity to come together with all of these people that have a shared love of literature, of writing, of performing, whatever it is that is how they shine. You give them that avenue to actually come and share that with others and share a story that maybe without that, no one would know. And yet that story can speak to so many people. When you asked me to share my story, at first, that event was the first time I had ever actually talked about that. I'd never shared that, not publicly. And to have the response that I got from that room full of people that I was sure had more traumatic experiences, had gone through more than I had, my story was not going to be powerful to them, to have them stand up in tears and feel it as much as they did. You guys gave me the opportunity to share that, but I got so much more in return. And that's because of just who you are. You make people feel so comfortable that they can share those things. And I think that comes through in your poetry. It comes through in the events that you host. It comes through in everything that you do. Everything that you write is so much from your heart. And because you share so much of that, you give others a safe place to share their own stories, and you accept those stories in others. And that's a huge talent for both of you. And that's something that I've always admired in the two of you.
Those stories are, there's a poem in the first book Actually, it's not a poem. I lied. It's a letter. Because ages ago, I met a young man on this random trip. I'm sorry, I hate the way my lips just curled up when I said random. Let's try emphasizing that like a lady. On this random, see,
There you go. Random. Random.
On this random, and we weren't even supposed to go. Our friend calls us at the last minute, and she was like, "Get in the car, let's go." It was -8 degrees, so we went. And I'm sorry, I'm making this story a lot longer than it needs to be, so let me make it quicker. But I do have story living.
Mm-hmm.
So, got in the car. We went down there. We went to this hotel, and I had the weirdest time. Just odd, because we have very odd times. Like vacation, they're very odd. We never tell the story for real. If you want to read about them, there's this book series called The Misfit Guides, and we literally tell real life stories of what's happened to us, and people go, "What?"
Well, one of my questions for you later was going to be, tell me about one of the weird things that's happened to you on your adventure. So now we know where to find all of them, and that's in the Misfit Guides.
The resume in the front, that's all things that's actually happened. So
what happened to you?
So we came on this trip, and it was one of those weird trips. And we show up, and my friend is really kind to this other person. And honestly, he looked like a vagabond. And he was not. He was totally not. One day I'll tell what he was, but he was definitely not. We ended up hanging out with him one evening because she just wanted to talk to him. So I was like, all right, cool, do you? And so we hung out with him till like 5 a.m. And he said this really cool thing. He was like, you wear your sad stories and your abuse survival like they're scars. Those are medals of honor. You never see a general go to every battle and then be like, you know what I'm not doing? Keeping that medal up there. He was like, each and every one, just put them up there. Show the world. Because you made it through. And you know what's better? You made it through and you're still a nice person.
That's it. That's it.
And ever since then, I'm like, I'm not scarred. I'm not hurt. I have the ingredients for greatness. It's just my job to whip it up and bake it right.
Mm-hmm. It's what you do with those lessons. It's what you do. It's what you take away from them. I think about it as a patina. I could be all shiny. I could be, perfect. I could be showroom new. Or I could have a really cool patina. Everything that has happened to me, time, challenges, everything has added some tiny little mark. And every tiny little mark makes it more interesting. You can see a shiny new car going down the road, but when you see that really cool antique car going down, the dented bumper, the rust spots, the mismatched door panel, but it's an antique and it is still going and it has got character. That's the car you notice. That's the one. And that car is wearing everything it's been through, proudly. I mean, yeah, there's those old beaters that you're like, oh, that car needs help. But there are also those great cars that have been through a lot. And you look at them and go, I want a car like that. I want to drive something like that has story.
I'm nodding along, but I'm definitely a brand new type of girl car. I'm sorry.
Now, don't get me wrong. You give me a sports car, I'm going to be happy. But give me the antique pickup truck too.
Exactly.
I need a car with a story and a car I can make a story in.
I like the car you can make a story in. That literally just made it. It changed my worldview on who I was and what I could do with what I had been through. And then it made me really think about the fact that I don't want other people to go through this. And no, my story should not be told by itself. And it should not be told in narrative. It should be told in poetry. And the reason why is because poetry is interpreted the way that you need it to be interpreted. When someone tells you a story, you've heard a story. You still interpret it, But for the most point, the plot points are going to always be the same. When someone tells you a poem, you pull a whole new meaning out of that. Each and every person sees a different thing in that poem.
Yeah, you see what you need to see.
So when you need to see it, you'll have it. And poems stick in your head. Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock struck one. You know, see what I'm saying? Like, we've known this for forever. So it sticks in our head. And when we need it, it's there. When you need a story, it may be there, it may not be there. You may not remember the whole story because it was kind of long, but the poem you remember. And just in case I didn't know that this works, it actually worked for someone that was on our team, and they were reading the new book, and then they recognized that they needed changes in their lives. They needed to get rid of an abusive person in their life, and they did it. And now they're like the CEO of a corporation.
Wow.
And it's only 6 years.
And that's an impact.
That's an impact. And I am thrilled, partly that that boy told me, beautiful young man, oh my God, and he told me that.
Do I know that beautiful young man?
No, you don't know that.
Different one? You know some beautiful young men. We've got a chance to hang out with a few of them.
Ooh, I do love my the handsome one that is gracing my arm now for red carpets. I love him gracing my arm. It's so not ladylike, but it's just like, oh,
he's a beautiful person. And he's a nice person too.
But like, he's like beautiful on the inside. That just makes it so weird. Like, I've hung out with beautiful people and they're just not nice.
And sometimes you find a beautiful one that is, and he certainly is. He's a nice one to hang out with.
And he's so semi-wise. I mean, I've hung out with him a lot more, so I know moments when he's not as wise. But for the most part, like, dang, how old are you again?
I don't know.
Although I am looking for a new one. I'm like, I've gone down the red carpet with him way too many times. I went to a couple premieres with him. I mean, at this point, it's time for a new one.
It's an accessory. It's a nice person to have as an accessory.
It is. I think one of my friends were like, it's a nice person. PURSEON. Person.
That's so much less than what he really is as a human being.
I'm like, no, so I told my friend he's a PERSON. She was like, oh, really? Like, yes.
Well, I want you to tell the world where they can find you guys and where they can find your work and your amazing poetry that speaks so much to so many people.
So you can find out everything about your ladies at www.andithoughladies.com, and that includes our 4 podcasts. And if you happen to be in Frankfurt, Germany in the next 26 days, we will be in Germany at the Frankfurt Book Fair. So please stop by.
That's going to be so exciting. I can't wait to hear what you guys experience there.
Oh my God.
It's going to be so fun.
We just found out that like our cover for our first 25 Hottest Authors magazine is one of the featured authors from the featured community at the Frankfurt Book Fair.
Nice.
I don't think he's as hot as person as he is in his pictures.
That's a bonus. Always a bonus.
I mean, but he's a terrific writer. Like, he's an amazing writer in multiple languages.
That's incredible.
He has like books out in 3 different languages, and then he started. He actually started a program with the FBI, so and Interpol. So yeah, like he's amazing. He's amazing. But I look forward to meeting him in person. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm excited to hear about it, and I am going to let you go off and do more poetry things and do all the things we have to do. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you, Nona, and I'm sorry that we missed Jade. I'm sorry that everybody missed Jade because she's a hoot and a half too. I mean, you guys are so much fun to hang out with. You have such a great energy. Together, separate, doesn't matter. You're wonderful and precious people doing amazing things out there in the world in so many avenues, and I'm just super glad that somehow I ended up in your orbit, and I've really enjoyed the time that we have spent together today. I've enjoyed the time we spent together in Maryland and in Atlanta and all the times that we've gotten to hang out, and I hope that is not the last time that I see you and we get to do some more things in the future, because it truly is a blessing to spend time with you both.
Thank you so much, Nola. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for letting us be on BYOB.
Absolutely. And we'll have you back so you can both be on because we want to hang out with Jade too. Please tell her I said hello and that I'm sorry that we missed her today. Send her my best, will you?
Well,
All right.